Well, I hope you guys enjoyed watching that. I certainly had a lot of fun. Like I said, I wish that we could have gone on for more than an hour, but I do, like I said, I do expect this sort of thing to start happening more often. Like I said, I don't really know quite when yet, but there's going to be plenty more opportunities to play Pantheon in the future. There's a lot more to come. So, just as a reminder, if you guys enjoyed this and you're looking forward to more content like this, hit the follow button while you're here to be notified when the stream goes live. I'm also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that sorts of good stuff. I will, like Sacred said, I'll be posting the recording of this to YouTube hopefully within the next day or two, so that anybody who missed it, or if you want to rewatch it, you can always rewatch it there. But like I said, as promised, at this point, I think I'll open it up. I'm gonna bring my chat window up here and read it a little bit. And if you guys have any questions, you want to hang out, talk, I'd love to do that for not too long. But like I said, I really appreciate everybody being here on the first stream today. This is really awesome. I wish I could have interacted with you guys more during the gameplay, but there's like a lot to keep track of. I got the group, I got the gameplay, I got the stream, all sorts of stuff. Like still getting used to things, obviously. So at this point, I'm just gonna read chat here a little bit and get caught up on what's happening. Nader's Love Child says, Baz, you need a map of Terminus for the wall behind your stream cam. I completely agree. I actually thought about that. It would go right here. I have pledged to Pantheon at a level that would eventually earn me a cloth map of Terminus. That probably, those like pledge rewards probably won't be coming till much closer to launch or even after launch. But definitely, eventually, I'm gonna try to get a bunch of good Pantheon merch around here. Dakrat Lewin says, have they given any rough ETA on alpha starting for backers? Yes, actually. In the last newsletter, they mentioned that they were shooting for alpha to start probably toward the beginning of 2019. So, again, all things are, subject to change. Sometimes just in game development, unexpected things happen. But I think if they're confident enough to kind of give that their goal in the newsletter, that I'd say that there's a pretty good chance. So that's definitely something to look forward to. That'll be here before you know it. Asa says, what class were you playing and what was your take on the class? I was playing a ranger. I was playing a level 30 ranger. And I will say that the ranger is a class that in most MMOs doesn't really interest me that much. There was only one other MMO that I can think of that I really spent any significant amount of time on a ranger. And the ranger in Pantheon, though, is very different. It's very unique. I to be honest, wasn't even planning on playing it until I saw the class reveal and all the different abilities that they'll have in their arsenal, and it just sounded so fun. And it does actually turn out that it is very fun. It's a very active class. Like, as much as my roots are in tab target, more slower MMOs like EQ, I do like a certain amount of like action integrated into it. Like so the range of the playstyle, it feels very active. Like, you have a set of abilities that you can use while you're at range with your bow, and then to kind of be most efficient, you'll want to periodically, like I said, use that engage ability to jump into the fray of combat, which is a little risky. Obviously, you might get caught up in some AoEs or take more damage or something, but you can get in there and you can deal a lot of damage really quickly with your melee weapons. And then, so you get in, do a bunch of damage, and then you use the withdraw ability that kind of, you literally kick off of your target and it bounces you back a good distance so that you get right back out of things. You can go back to using your bow. So, like I said, it's kind of that skirmisher play style. That's really fun. I hope to, in the future, I'm sure I'll dig into the class a little bit deeper and understand all the nuances of it. But like, just on first impressions, it seems really fun to play. Bronson says, did you notice if DPS was higher in melee or range? That's a really good question. I haven't really had the time to really like do a full like analysis of the DPS of the different abilities. It's like I said, I think you can deal damage faster in melee. That's my first impression, what I would say. There are like that silent arrow ability, the one that you saw. It takes a long time to draw the arrow back, and you can see like a casting bar at the bottom. It takes a few seconds to wind it up, but once that does land, it actually deals a huge chunk of damage, which is really good. So there's always exceptions like that, but I think if you really want to maximize your DPS, you're going to be using both melee and range. Nader's Love Child says, how do you feel about the beckon spells? In my opinion, the flavor seems odd, like bears are appearing out of nowhere. I would agree with that. I think it's important to remember that those animations are totally placeholders. So the fact that they just kind of phase in and do a couple of attacks and then phase out, I wouldn't expect that to be the case like further down the line, especially at launch. I think they're just kind of placeholders. I like the flavor of it. Like if you could actually see the panther running like from behind you and it goes in and attacks for several seconds or whatever and then runs on its way or whatever. I think that would be cool. I think it's a good way to kind of switch up so you're not just kind of standing in the back always like shooting arrows nonstop. Switching it up with some more flavor like that I think will be good. They just need to refine the animations a little bit more, but that's a minor detail. Kitch says Joppa mentioned in the QA that later the beckon spells will behave more realistically. Yeah, I remember that as well. So I'm sure VR feels the same way, that it might feel a little clunky now, but like I said, as with everything, this is pre-alpha, so little details like that are fairly negligible. Like that's gonna see a lot of changes and improvements to come. The fact that though that like I said, what I'm most glad about is that the fact that the client is stable. There's not a huge amount of like lag. Um, it's totally playable and it's smooth. There's no like fundamental game breaking issues. I didn't fall through the world at all. Like that's all really important stuff. That's more like the core mechanics of combat and stuff. It felt like it felt relatively balanced, especially for pre-alpha. So that's the stuff that's really the focus right now. Asa says, "Did you have unlimited arrows?" I do, but that's again, that's not gonna be the case. I don't think. There's an arrow slot in my inventory, and I had arrows in it, but I wasn't consuming that. But I think that's just I just don't think that mechanic has been implemented into the game yet. I think that's just a placeholder for testing purposes. That'll be interesting. That'll kind of might change the way Rangers play really. Once consuming arrows is integrated into the game, and you have to kind of keep that in the back of your mind of how many you have and what kind of arrows you're using, how much they cost and stuff. That'll make things more interesting. Findale says, "Are you playing a ranger in all future streams?" No. I once I get more freedom to stream the game, just kind of like on my own and as more regular, like on a more regular schedule. Like I said, I don't know when that will be, but whenever that time does come, um, I'm gonna really play. I'm gonna try to play every class. I will. I'll just say now, I will play every class on stream at some point. Um, I'd like to do just some kind of general like introduction to all the classes and just kind of explore the basics of all the different classes so that you can find which one feels right for you. Like I said, I just played the Ranger today. When we were trying to, we're working out with the other guys what composition we were gonna have. The Ranger just seemed a good fit for me today, but in the future, I'm like I said, I'm not really a like die-hard Ranger player. Um, I'm usually more of a support player, although I can flex to a bunch of different roles. So you'll see me play a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know what I'll do in the next one, but I'll play all sorts of stuff. I'm gonna scroll up a little bit here. There's a lot of chat that I missed. You guys are awesome. I'm really glad that you guys enjoyed watching it. I see a lot of people saying that they really enjoyed the stream. So that's awesome to hear. That really means everything, especially since it's, my first stream. The fact that I think it all went over pretty smoothly, like that's really encouraging. I can't wait to do something like this again. Stanky Frankie says most of the chat is me trolling. Hey, there's always one. That's just Twitch would not be complete without it. Findale says, hopefully they have a special bag which will be a quiver that also provides stat boots and it can hold a boatload of arrows. I totally agree with that. That would be awesome. That'd be a good kind of like it might not even have to be ranger specific, but especially if they did have like a ranger only quiver that you might had to do a quest for or something. Um, that'd be awesome. It'd also be a good way to fit some stats into slots that you might not otherwise be able to expect to. I think that's really cool, really unique like that. Maybe even if if arrows even have weight, which that would be tough, but if they do have some amount of weight, you could even make like a quiver that reduces their weight or something. That would be cool. Nicodemus says, any thought as to what you might main at launch? What's your usual go-to class or archetype? Like I said, I'm usually a support player. In most past games, my go-to class is the cleric. I played a cleric in Dungeons and Dragons Online or DDO for several years at a very high rating tier. So that's my tendency. That's what I lean to. At this point, it's still kind of hard to say. Like all the classes from the class reveals that we got over this summer, all the classes look really good. Like I actually can't decide. I've even thought about maybe maining to like a paladin, which is weird for me. Like that's another class that I never would have thought that I would play, because again, in most games, like I don't know, that most games just don't do paladins and rangers right for me. But based on the class reveal, the paladin just seems so much fun. I will say the first character though in any MMO that I ever took seriously was a paladin. So it's not that much of a stretch, but I was also like 5 at the time. Like as some of you may know, I started playing EverQuest when I was 5 years old. I'll give a short story. So the first character I ever created in EverQuest, this is a little bit rabbit trail, but it'll tie back around. First character I ever created in EverQuest was a half-elf ranger named Jimmy, because I was 5 years old and I wanted everything to be named Jimmy. And Jimmy he started in Surefall Glade, okay? And this was back in like 1999. I was playing with a few other my family members, but they were still really new to the game, so they didn't know the layout of the area. and I couldn't find food. Jimmy was starving. We couldn't find any merchant that would sell food or anything, and so eventually, long story short, they told me that I needed to delete Jimmy and re-roll as a paladin because they knew how a high elf paladin in Felwith, because they knew the area, they knew how high elf paladins worked. So I had to start over, traumatized as a 5-year-old, start over as a high elf paladin. And that was the character that I played for quite a while. Like I said, that was a long time ago and I was really young, so I don't think all the skills are very transferable. But I do like paladins. It's not really not that much different from a cleric, especially in Pantheon. Actually, all paladins, according to lore, all paladins used to be part of the cleric order, but they eventually transcended the cleric order. As Joppa would say, they lay down the tome to take up the sword and take vengeance into their own hands. And that actually does sound really cool to me. So I'm thinking, maybe now it's time for me, as a cleric, to put the cleric life behind me and maybe take up a new path as a paladin. But I'm not going to make any promises yet. I don't know. But right now, I'll tell you that that's something that interests me. I don't play tanks a whole lot. Like I said, I usually either support or DPS. I did play Heroes of the Storm for a couple of years regularly, and I played a tank there. I know, like, MMO and MOBAs are not exactly the same, but I'd probably be able to pick it up pretty quickly. Anyway, long story short, that's all to say I have no idea what I'm gonna main, but I've got a few ideas. Like I said, I'm gonna try to do a stream where I explore every single class, and probably after I do that, that's when I'll have a better idea of what class I actually want to play at launch. Dakota Farstrider said, "Did VR limit your choice of race or class for the stream?" Not really. No, I mean, we didn't really want to go with some like totally bizarre comp, like everybody's playing wizards, like as fun as that would be, and who knows, maybe we'll do that in the future. We had a pretty good amount of freedom to really create the comp however we wanted. How do you feel about a bottomless quiver that gives you unlimited basic arrows? That's a good question. I was thinking about that earlier. And I'm not quite so sure. My gut tells me that, like I was saying earlier, how managing how many arrows you have left and keeping track of that, I feel like that's a pretty important part of the ranger gameplay. And so giving you unlimited basic arrows, like, I don't know, that might simplify things too much. Like, is that more than a quality of life issue? Probably. I like the idea of having lots of different types of arrows, and I think we will see that. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head from the ranger reveal, there'll at least be ways to kind of like poison the tip of your arrows, and like there's different types of arrows. In the Q&A they mentioned, this is from no uppercase, in the Q&A they mentioned that a thought would be that the basic arrows would be unlimited while still keeping consumables, of which would be more powerful in some way. I think that's fair, because again, I'm just thinking out loud. Like I said, I don't have a ton of experience with rangers, so I can't speak on it at like an expert level, but my perception of it would be that, yeah, if you do have to keep buying or fletching basic arrows, like that will get expensive. Like that stuff's not free. And so the fact that rangers would then have to have so much more money just to do combat, that doesn't really seem fair, to be honest. So that might be a good compromise, to have at least the basic arrows as unlimited, but then you have other things like poisoned arrows to do more unique stuff. Again, it seems like that's not finalized though. That's just kind of a thought that they might have had. which I wouldn't have a problem with that, to be honest. That classy cat says, "Dude, same here. When I was 6, but it was awesome. EQ blew me away, and I still love it." It's, I mean, EQ was a revolutionary game as it is, and it blew a lot of people's minds. But um, if you're 5 or 6 years old, you experience it just so much more differently. Like having the fascination of a child and that imagination. Um, like I said, I've talked about this in like interviews on VOT and stuff before. Like the fact that when you're 5 or 6, you've barely gotten used to how the real world operates. So then when you discover that there's an entire whole other virtual world that's available to you, it's like it's like overload. But EQ, it's safe to say that EQ completely changed my life in for the better in the way that I view things. It's awesome. I was so fortunate to have the chance at TwitchCon when I met Brad for the first time to like personally thank him for that. I when I was little, I never would have thought that I would have the chance to actually do that. So the fact that I could thank him for that and explain to him like how EQ has shaped me into the person that I am today, that was really really cool. Findel says, I like the idea of having a quiver be like a golf bag and that it can hold all the arrows you can make from basic to the most robust, and you can right click to decide which arrows you want to shoot at the time, and you can macro it to allow you to change arrows on the fly. I like that idea. That sounds good. I think that the analogy of a golf bag, I think that's a good way of putting it. Nicodemus says, I empathize. The class reveals have been so great. It's been a long time coming and nice to have some solid class info after so long. Yeah, definitely. I know that's something that a lot of people have been looking forward to. I will just shamelessly plug my YouTube channel because, as some of you probably know, but there might be some of you that don't. On my YouTube channel, there's an interview that I did with Joppa at PAX that is kind of a good overview of like the flavor and the style of all the different classes, and that really actually kind of kicked off the class reveals that we got in the newsletter over the summer. Um, so if you're still kind of having a hard time deciding uh, which class you're going to play, you might want to watch that to give you a little bit more insight from the creative director's perspective as to what all the classes different do and what their like strengths and weaknesses are. Lucas Blackstone says, I hope enchanters don't remain so powerful. They pretty much seem essential. The all gnome group doesn't even have tanks or healers. So, minor note, that all gnome group that we saw in one of the streams a little bit ago, race class restrictions aren't in the game in pre-alpha. So they very well may have had a like gnome warrior or something, because just for testing purposes, not all of those restrictions are in yet. So they could have had like a gnome healer, a gnome tank, anything like that. So that's kind of just a side note. But as far as enchanters being so powerful, I agree. I hope they're not essential. I don't think there should be any class that like is in a position where, oh, we can't go, we have 5 people in this group, but we can't go on an adventure until we find this specific class. Like there should be some flexibility that allows you to just kind of have to adapt to whatever your group composition is. And like I said, again, I'll say it till my face turns blue. Like this is pre-alpha. The balance and tuning is going to continue to change. Um, but I don't even know if it's necessarily true that enchanters are essential right now. Like they're certainly very powerful and very helpful, but we've seen in the past that rogues can do a fair amount of CC too. Like it just changes the way that you have to play. Yes, having an enchanter might make things a lot easier, but being able to pull in some other class that might have some like utility situational CC, or just actually, you know, changing the way that you strategize and the way that you think about the game, that will you know, that will come into play too. Nick Hot's now hosting you with up to 28 viewers. Thanks for the host, guys. Welcome to the chat. We're just hanging out, we're just talking. I don't know how much longer this will go on, but just hanging out, having a good time. Sacred's here. Hey, Sacred. Nick says I should have hosted when I shut down my stream. My bad. No worries, man. No worries. Good job CCing today, my friend. I'm glad that Martini was the one breaking the breaking the mezzes and not me. Overall, I think we kept it to our 2 wipes. I think we did good. We killed the boss at the end. Overall, that went really well. Janus says Bard is part of the archetype. I'm sure they'll be comparable to utility and CC as Enchanter. That's a really good point, and Joppa mentioned that in the interview, that Bard would be considered a CC class. I think the goal is for, you know, Enchanters are the only class that's really built from the ground up, so to speak, as a crowd control class. So, you know, Bards will be able to bring in some more like buffing utility and other stuff like that. So while, you know, if you're just comparing Bard crowd control to Enchanter crowd control, like just in a vacuum, the Enchanter will probably have more powerful crowd control abilities, but the Bard will still be extremely useful by having all the other buffs and the more DPS and stuff like that. But that's a good point, and I remember asking him that, like, if, you know, if Enchanters are the only CC class, like, is it going to be the case where if you need CC, you always need to go to the Enchanter? And that's probably not going to be the case. The Bard would fit into there as well. Now, we haven't officially gotten like the 100% confirmation that the Bard will be available at launch. Joppa said that he's very confident from his perspective that it would be, but you know, you never know. It's still a little ways out, but I'm pretty sure that they'll be able to get the Bard in there, and that will bring more crowd control into the equation. So then, you know, if you can't find an Enchanter, you can always get a Bard, and if you can't find a Bard, then like I was saying earlier, you just got to make it work. You just got to change your strategy. Maybe get a Rogue in there, have them focus on crowd control. They might have to sacrifice some DPS, like I was saying, change your strategy. Might have to sacrifice some DPS, but at least you can get enough crowd control to make it work. $180 says, what was it, 2 or 3 wipes? I think it was 2. I think we only had 2 wipes, which is good. And I think we I think we lasted a little bit longer than the All-Star stream a couple weeks ago. Not by much, not by much, but I think we lasted a few more minutes before we wiped than they did. Viranic says your interview with Joppa from PAX East was really good. Thanks. Thank you. I had a lot of fun doing that. Joppa's like an awesome guy. The more that I talked to him, the more confidence I got that Pantheon was in good hands. Like, with him at the helm, he has such a good understanding of not only where the game is, but where it needs to be. And like, he's just got such a good grip on the game and his vision and how to take it from where it is now to where it needs to be. I think he's good. He's in a good position to not just, you know, not he can push the genre forward. Ultimately, is what it boils down to. And again, the entire VR team as a whole. I would include that in them. The entire team um, is very talented, and they all have very important jobs. But in talking with Joppa specifically, um, I was very impressed with his ability to just come up with completely unique ideas that I've never even heard of and be able to articulate them well. So um, I didn't really know Joppa all that well before I met him at PAX East, but I was really glad that I had the opportunity to talk with him quite a bit while I was there. I had a lot of fun doing that interview, and I got a lot of really good feedback about that, and so hopefully we'll be able to do more developer interviews like that in the future. Sacred says he wants to get his hands back on his shaman. I know, man. Let's we need to do this again like ASAP. We'll switch up the we'll switch up the comp. Maybe I'll go cleric next time and you can do shaman and we'll do like a dual support like that. That would be interesting. The shaman looks like a really cool class. Like I could see myself putting quite a few hours into the shaman as well because they seem really flexible, able to switch between doing healing and doing more DPS and also buffs really quickly. So I like the shaman. I know totally unrelated, but I played Hearthstone for quite a while, which it seems like totally unrelated. But I played a shaman mostly in Hearthstone, and just the flavor. I really that to say just the flavor of the shaman and the ancestral aspect of it. I actually found really cool. So that kind of like whet my appetite for shamans that I didn't really have before. So like, reading abilities like part the veil that the shaman has, like the shaman seems like the mechanics and the flavor mesh like really well, and I can just envision myself playing one and having a lot of fun with it. I have a Classy Cat says I have a feeling Enchanter with a Charmed Pet will have some great DPS. I'd say so too. It looks like I found the Enchanter reveal really interesting, in that they don't just mez stuff. Like there's a lot of other tools at their disposal. Like especially with this like the summoner. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the synergy with the summoner, like the summon behemoth thing, and then the enchanter charms it. Um, there's gonna be some interesting dynamics with charmed pets. I think if you can get that under control, like that's kind of like a high risk, high reward type of play, because if your charmed pet breaks at the wrong time, then that could be bad news. But if you do it well, I agree. I think that could be some really great DPS too. What time is it getting to be? Ugh. I'll stick around for a few more minutes. Just a few more minutes, take a few more questions. Biomax says Druid is utility and heals, I'm guessing. Yes, Druid um, is mostly classified as under the healer role, but really every class has a certain amount of utility. And you'll see that if you go to, like I said, go to pantheonmmo.com, look at all the different classes, check out their roles and their highlighted abilities. But you'll notice under the roles, each one of them has utility listed, and there's several abilities there. Excuse me, that you know that provide something unique to the party that's a little different from what your expected role is. So, like I said, an enchanter isn't just only going to be doing, mezzing stuff. Like, and likewise, the healer isn't just going to stand there and do heal after heal after heal. Like, the one off the top of my head that I always think of first is the vine woven bridge, which that allows the druid to just conjure this actual structure, this bridge that you can actually walk on, that would allow you to walk over like chasms or little valleys or whatever, like stuff like that. That helps you actually explore the environment. Like that truly puts the environment back in player versus environment, and little stuff like that. That presumably no other class has an ability like that. Really adds to the flavor of the class and also makes it more desirable. So the druid, again, I'm telling you, I could go through every single class and tell you what I'm excited about each one of those classes. Like they all have something that's really cool and intriguing to me and makes me want to actually get my hands on it, because sometimes things on paper don't always play out in practice, for better or for worse. So it's hard to tell just by reading. Like I want to actually get my hands on these classes and show you guys on stream kind of the basics of how they work, and that will give me a better really idea of which one actually resonates me. Sometimes the class picks you. You don't pick the class picks you, and that doesn't happen until you actually get some hours in on it. There's Ronick. Says you didn't get Sacred killed nearly enough. I know. I tried. Did Sacred even die at all? Well, I mean, we all wiped twice, but other than that, I don't know. I know. Too bad. Maybe next time. Janus says druids don't have res. Um, I don't know. I don't know if you can say that for sure. Like there might not have been one listed in the class reveals, but I will say, at least in my interview with Joppa, um, he did say that the goal was for each class or each healer to have a res. So those class reveals aren't comprehensive. Like that's not a complete list of all their abilities. So it might be that they have some type of res that they have access to that just wasn't listed there. Chubby the Walrus says, now that we've seen all the class reveals, is there any word on race reveals? I haven't heard any official word on that, but I think that makes a lot of sense. I would certainly like to see that soon. If Veronica's still here, he would be a good one to ask. Maybe he can slip some little hints in there, if you know what I'm saying, since he just does the newsletters. I think that would be a great thing to do regularly in the newsletters, like they did with the classes. Even if it's just like one race a month or something. Just show maybe if the updated models, if they have any updated models, and kind of maybe the stat modifiers, or I know that there will be racial abilities, so I think that would be another cool thing to show. But all this will come in time. Sometime, it's still in development, so it's sometimes hard to wait, but that stuff will come all in good time when it's ready. No Uppercase says there was a mention of Scar being redone. Yes, there was. The Scar have been overhauled pretty significantly, from my understanding, more so than any of the other classes. Um, so that one in particular would be a good one to highlight, to show off the new, even concept art. I don't think we've even seen any new concept art for the class for that race. So that would be a really cool. I think that would be a really cool newsletter piece. Findale says, crossing my fingers about Scar being able to be monks. I think they can. Can't they? I gotta look this up now. I just remembered. I can just do this. Hey, there we go. Classes. Actually, I know what I'm gonna do. It's faster. Here's the matrix. Scar monk. There it is. Scar can be monks. To be honest, I don't know why. My first impression is that Scar are like way too chaotic and out of control to have like the mental discipline to be a monk. But there's got to be some sort of lore justification for it there. I know I know they put a lot of thought into each one of these race class combinations, so there's got to be some good reason for it. Oh, but anyway, just for those of you that don't know, this is what I was talking about earlier. The website. Go to the classes here at the top. You can hover over and hit learn more on any one of these classes, and it'll show you more. So like the druid, like I was talking about. Group role, healer, support, utility. There's that Vine Woven Bridge I was talking about. There's a lot to read on each one of these classes now, which is really awesome. And also, even before that, at the beginning of the Q&A, I was talking about the pledges right here. The pledge, you just hit pledge at the top. And let's see. Starting at the cohorts pledge, there's the Terminus cloth map right there, and every tier above that also has that included. And so like I said, that when the time comes, it's gonna be right over here. This is a big blank wall just waiting for that map. Anyway, on that note, I should probably get going, but thank you guys once again for being here, hanging out with me, even after the stream for quite a while. I really had a lot of fun. That really means a lot to me, guys. Oh, I can, I would be amiss though if I left without bringing attention to my Trust in Pantheon shirt. This, for those of you that don't know, this was inspired by one of the PAX vlogs that I did, where I literally walked around the PAX showcase floor and with a sign that said Trust in Pantheon. It had this exact, it was written like right before I left for PAX. I like scribbled it in like Sharpie on a torn piece of cardboard and carried it around like, like some doomsday prophet or something, telling people about Pantheon. In kind of like this kind of tongue-in-cheek, but also like serious and informing people about the game and directing them to the booth. And I've vlogged about that. And I had so much fun doing that that I turned it into a shirt. And this is available, FYI, again, shameless plug, on my merch store, which I think there should be a link to it below the bottom of the stream, but it's designbyhumans.com/shop/BazgrimTV. I've got all sorts of merch over there. Trust in Pantheon, BazgrimTV stuff. All sorts of good stuff over there for you guys to check out. You can represent with the Trust in Pantheon. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Hashtag shameless. Absolutely. Anyway, so now that we got that out of the way, it is late where I am, so I should probably get going. But again, once guys, thank you. I will let you know as soon as I hear about another opportunity that I can do this, a stream like this again. Absolutely looking forward to doing more stuff like this in the future. So I will see you then. Until then, though, my name is Bazgrim. See you next time.